Yep. Yes, sir.
All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Madam Treasurer, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Elick?
Here.
Mr. Gebhardt?
Here.
Ms. Karstafen?
Here.
Mr. Hauser?
Here.
And Mrs. Seguin.
Here.
Would everybody please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And welcome to the February 16th, 2022 Elyria Board of Education meeting. I'd like to introduce our group up here. To my right is our senior board member, Mike Gebhardt. To his right is board member Elaine Seguin. I am Greg Elick. To our left is board member Annie Karstafen. To her left is our new board member, Len Hauser. Further down to the left is our superintendent, Ann Slosh. And all the way down at the end is our award-winning treasurer, Joy Clickinger. Okay. First thing on the agenda is visitor comments. We do have a visitor signed up today, a week in advance, and that is Dawn. And Dawn, you're more than welcome to come on up and start your 15 minutes.
This is going to do most of it, but pretty much just going back to what I was telling you before. I went personally to drugstores to ask them if they had the comb remedy, which is the FDP approved one, because they always say it's going to come out after the new year, and so far, nobody. I went to like 3-4 different pharmacies, none of them have it. When I asked them what they would do if I got ivermectin, I got a script and gave it to him, the guy got real jumpy and started defending himself on how he might lose his license and this, that, which I thought was funny, but I told him to calm down. I was just asking a question. I already have ivermectin, so I don't need him to prescribe it and lose his job or lose his license. How does this go? Get away with it? There's 6 companies pretty much own the media. So everything that you get told is controlled by 6 different people. So we get told the same thing, and the people that say anything different, they get censored or attacked. Same thing with everything that we buy. Basically, 11 companies own everything: Coke, Pepsi, Unilever, P&G. I mean, they just own anything. Didn't we learn in history that monopolies are illegal? But when you want to know why they get away with all this stuff, this is why they get away with it, because they own everything. So my point last meeting is that you're bound to the Constitution. They don't have a Constitution. So when these things come up and these things start happening, and they will, I want you to know what repercussions can be done against the board in case this is ever brought to your attention to force these things on people. Nothing's being forced right now, but we know that things change and things change quickly. So 3 videos, 8 minutes, 2 minutes, so it shouldn't be too bad. This is an FDA undercover, thing talking about how their plan is to make this a vaccine for children to have to come to school.
Biden wants to inoculate as many people as possible. So you have to get an annual shot. We hasn't been formally announced yet. They don't want to why they're going out. The drug companies, the food companies, the vaccine companies, they pay us hundreds of millions of dollars a year to hire and keep the reviewers to approve their products. If they can get every person required an annual vaccine, that is a recurring return of money going into their company.
So how do you know it's already getting approved?
Well, they're not going to, just from everything I've heard, they're not going to not approve this.
Meet Christopher Cole, an executive officer at the FDA with over 20 years' experience who claims to be directly involved in the approval process of the various COVID vaccines.
I think what's going to happen is it's going to be gradual. I think schools are going to mandate it.
Why do they need to?
Well, the same reason you or I would do probably. So the 3 will bolster your system. And then there'll be an annual, eventually an annual, just like the flu shot.
For the toddlers?
Well, for everyone.
Okay, so the toddlers too then, we'll have to get it.
Probably.
Okay.
I don't completely agree with the process.
What do you mean you don't agree with the process?
Well, I mean, they don't have all the tests right there. So I agree with the thing that it is important to inoculate them. But you can't provide the parent as much assurity as you normally want to. It's an easy way for all all age groups, all designations, and then you have to get approved by specific age groups based on the study.
Do you think that's really an emergency for the toddlers?
Well, they're all approved under an emergency. The efficacy data doesn't have to be as high. Yeah. The standard is on emergency use authorizations is that it does more benefit than harm.
I thought their cases weren't that high for 6-month to 4-year-olds.
They're not, but because it's related to COVID, it's under that approval process.
So just like other things, they require children to go to school, I do believe that they will eventually try to do this. And why do they do this? Because like I said, it's under EUA. And this is the lawyer, Robert Kennedy, and he will explain to you why, under EUA, if they get you guys to put this in our schools through our children, it gives them protection, pretty much, from everything.
Mr. Kennedy, many of the parents later regret having their children and adolescents vaccinated. And we see, like you said, so many children get injured and even die, but at the same time, we know that parents cannot seek for any justice for what is happening because the vaccine manufacturers are completely shielded by the federal government from any liability. Do you believe that this law should be overturned, maybe scrapped completely?
Of course it should be overturned. And if you want to know why there's such a strong, fierce drive to vaccinate children, you have to understand how the law works. Under the CARES Act and the PrEP Act, emergency use authorization vaccines are protected from liability. So as long as it's an EUA vaccine, you can't sue them, no matter how reckless their conduct, no matter how grievous your injury, no matter how negligent they are, you cannot sue them. Once it becomes an approved vaccine, that shield, that immunity, freedom from immunity disappears. And we will be able to sue them, unless it's a recommended vaccine for children. Because under the Childhood Vaccine Act, any vaccine that is recommended for children automatically receives immunity from liability, even when that vaccine is given to an adult. So Pfizer knows that it cannot afford to give an approved vaccine to any American because attorneys like me will sue them and bankrupt them overnight. We will make them pay for the entire pandemic. But if they can get it approved for children, and they'll get immunity from liability, and they will not have to deal with the consequences of their behavior.
0. Doesn't matter what the studies show, doesn't matter if it's harmful, not harmful, doesn't matter if kids have a 99.98% survival rate. They'll get you guys to put it on the schedule because they're paid to. You heard them, the FDA, everybody, they pay our congressmen, our federal employees, our House of Representatives, millions and millions of dollars for them to do this. And this last one is from January 24th, Ron Johnson held a congressional, nobody was there, it was only on OAN, I watched it live, 5 hours of doctors, vaccine injured, nurses telling their stories and telling what's really been going on for the past 2 years and how they've been silenced and threatened and everything. And there's many, but I'm going to play one in particular it's from a nurse, and I think it's the most powerful.
Thank you, Senator, for giving me an uninterrupted opportunity to represent the harm that's coming to the patients in the American hospitals and the lack of early intervention. My name is Nicole Sirotek. I'm a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for over a decade. My specialty is critical care, trauma, and flight. Since the start of the COVID pandemic, I've actually been rebranded, I guess you can say, as a leading expert in early intervention strategies executed on a large mass scale using the FLCCC protocol, as well as COVID patient ventilator protective strategies to optimize COVID patients on the ventilators. My story actually begins back in May of 2020. I was one of the original nurses that went to NYC to help with the COVID pandemic, because as we remember, they needed nurses. And most importantly, they needed ventilators. Well, I was the whole package, a flight nurse that can manage ventilators. And when I arrived there, the gross negligence and the medical, malfeasance that happened in there and the complete medical mismanagement of these patients is what has led us to the situation that we're in right now. The pandemic and the hysteria that was created from poor public health measures and poor execution of appropriate early intervention strategies and the handicapping of medical professionals doing their job has led to where we are right now and into the crisis situation that we are in. I will use several key case studies that will represent larger descriptive statistical information for what I'm going to speak of. But when I was in New York, and what continues to happen today, is that many of them are not dying from COVID. Now, many people don't know about me is that I'm actually a master's prepared biochemist, and I have worked extensively with the HIV virus, tracking genetic mutations. So I feel very comfortable going toe-to-toe with some of these doctors here, although I am not a doctor, I'm just a nurse. But what we saw on these front lines, we knew what was happening. And when we asked for the ibuprofen, they said, no, it was contraindicated. When we asked, like, why aren't we giving them steroids? Oh, well, it's not. We're just following orders. Following orders has led to the sheer number of deaths that has occurred in these hospitals. I didn't see a single patient die of COVID. I've seen a substantial number of patients die of negligence and medical malfeasance. When I was on the front lines of New York, I'm unfortunately known globally viral as the nurse that was in the break room sobbing, saying that they were murdering my patients. The pharmaceutical companies had gone into those hospitals and decided to practice, I guess you can say, on the minorities, on the disadvantaged, on the marginalized populations that we know that we had no advocates for, because the very agencies that should have been protecting them were closed because we were sheltering in place. Now, while I was there and I saw that the pharmaceutical companies were rolling out remdesivir onto the patients, I tried to get a hold of the IRBs, I tried to get a hold of my appropriate chain of command, I tried CMS, I tried Department of Health. And they rolled out remdesivir onto a substantial number of patients for which we all saw it was killing the patients. And now it's the FDA-approved drug that is continuing to kill patients in the United States. As nurses, we've collected a statistical or descriptive amount of information that you may not get from the doctors, because from where they do quantitative data, we do qualitative data with a humanistic, phenomenological approach in nursing research. And so we've collected the data from all of these patients across the country from which we have been helping patients, because I formed the organization American Frontline Nurses and the Advocacy Network so nurses could advocate for these patients. And all of this data pool shows that as these patients get remdesivir, they have a less than 25% chance of survival if they get more than 2 doses. Now, they're rolling it out on children as well and into the nursing homes or skilled nursing facilities as early intervention, when, as Dr. Pierre Corey and Dr. Merrick have already demonstrated, that there are cost-effective medications out there, and we are going to see the amplification of death across our country. And we haven't even touched on the vaccines, for which all of our expert panels have already very well described that situation, so I won't touch on that, since many of them are by far superior to me than even I could ever hope to be. But I can tell you that 2 days ago, I flew out my first 10-year-old with a heart attack, and I had to fight the doctor in the ER because he's like, 10-year-olds don't have heart attacks. And I argued back and forth for 30 minutes to force his hand to get an EKG, to find out that he had almost a complete STEMI, which is ST elevated myocardial infarction, for which you could see it lit up on the 12-lead EKG. And he's like, well, that's not possible. And I'm like, well, he was just vaccinated yesterday. It is very much possible. At any given time, people are getting a hold of me and the nurse advocates at American Frontline Nurses to help advocate, because as you've seen, there's victim shaming. That it's anxiety, oh, it's this. But in actuality, if they put down that it was a vaccine injury, the physician, the corporation, the hospital, the clinic, they actually won't get reimbursed, so it gets labeled as anxiety or neuropathy or Guillain-Barré syndrome, when in actuality it's very realistically a vaccine injury. Now, I'm not, even though I founded American Frontline Nurses, I've traveled extensively to South America, India, and South Africa, working in hot zones, stopping the spread of the virus, and working with early intervention. And nowhere in those countries, in developing nations, do I see these issues that we see here in the United States. It's actually, I'm a very proud American citizen. I come from a family of immigrants, and my mother told me that the United States is the best country in the world, though granted I am biased being an American. And our level of healthcare has been deteriorated to substandard third world nation healthcare, whereas I tell people you are better off in South America in a field hospital than you are in level 1 trauma designer hospitals in the United States. As nurses, we are getting reports across the country from our American frontline nurses about patients not getting food, patients not getting water. How come a patient hasn't been fed in 9 days? Why do I need to get a court order to force a hospital to feed a person who isn't intubated and who's literally telling you they would like food? Oh, well, you can't take your BiPAP mask off. Well, that's what us nurses are for. We're gonna help you take that off and we're gonna help you eat, but we're not allowed to. If you know, if they're on a ventilator, they're not getting basic standards of care. I've had patients that haven't been bathed, haven't been fed, haven't been given water, haven't been turned. And if you ask me, this isn't a hospital, this is a concentration camp. Absolutely it is. Nowhere in the United States do we isolate people for hundreds of hours at a time with no human contact. It's not even allowed in the prisons. You are not allowed to isolate a prisoner for beyond a certain extensive amount of time because it is horrible for their mental health and is considered inhumane. However, in these hospitals now, we're allowed to isolate patients from their families for days, and you have to say goodbye to them over an iPhone, as Jennifer Bridges has just demonstrated to us, or she has to shuttle people in to see. And personally, I was fired for sneaking a Hispanic family in to say the last rites to their family. And so thank you, Senator Johnson, for giving nurses the opportunity to come and represent our patients, because as you can see, we're not often thought of as leading professionals, though we are the missing link between the doctors and the patients. So thank you so much for this time.
You can see, was it a pandemic? I don't know. I really don't. Because we've had these medications since 2020,
Okay.
since the beginning.
Okay, great. Okay, Dawn, thank you. Okay. All right, moving along on the agenda here, Board of Education, the minutes for the February 2nd, 2022 meeting was posted. Hopefully everyone's had a time to review those minutes, and at this point I'd like to ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion by Board Member Gebhardt. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second by Board Member Karstoffen. Any comments or questions? With none, Madam Treasurer, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Ms. Karstafen?
Aye.
Mr. Hauser?
Aye.
Mrs. Segwin?
Aye.
And Mr. Elick?
Aye. Motion carries. Treasurer action items. Madam Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a couple items this evening. The first is asking for acceptance of the monthly financial reports, and the second item is to acknowledge, express appreciation, and accept the gift from Ms. Barbara Weiss of $100 to the Founders Memorial Scholarship.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the treasurer action items?
So moved.
I have a motion by Board Member Karstoffen. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second by Board Member Segwin. Questions or comments? I do have a quick question. Will we be able to eventually get a accounting of the bonds that you had in the presentation that are going to be going for the project, and maybe some sort of summary on where we are with the building project?
Sure. I don't understand your first part of that, where we are with the building project, I get.
Do we still have bonds in that report that are for the capital project
No, what we have, we sold bonds that get paid off within the next 35 years. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so none of the ones in for the capital, in the meters, is that the name of the organization? Do we have any of the bonds in there, or capital improvement bonds?
Yes.
Investment capital improvement bonds?
Yes, we do.
So
you wanna know
eventually
where we're
those
at.
will be
They'll go
used
away,
for the
right.
project.
All right.
Okay?
Yep, got it.
So if we can, down the road, get an accounting for that. All right. Okay, any other questions or comments? With none, Madam Treasurer, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Karstafen?
Aye.
Mrs. Segwin?
Aye.
Mr. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Hauser?
Aye.
And Mr. Elick?
Aye, motion carries. Any other reports this evening, Madam Treasurer?
No, thank you.
Okay, moving along. We don't have anything OFCC or anything, correct?
Correct.
All right, superintendent action items. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, to approve the out-of-state athletic field trip. This was postponed due to a snow day, so that's why there's a new date. Also to approve the overnight field trip for the robotics state tournament. To approve the calendar for the 22-23 school year. To approve the contract with Sprout Therapy. To approve the contract with the Educational Service Center and Achievement Centers. Both of those are for, well, the first one's for an OT leave replacement, and the second one's for a stay-put placement from a move-in. Also to approve the OSBA service agreement, and that concludes my action items.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the superintendent action items?
I'll make motion.
I have a motion by Board Member Gebhardt. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Hauser. Any questions or comments?
Could you talk about this Sprout Therapy? Is this something new?
We have an OT that is going out on leave, and it's very hard to find replacements. So we are kind of using a purchase service agreement with this organization to have an OT take over while the other one's on leave.
OT, occupational therapist.
You got it.
Thank you. I'm
You're
learning.
getting it.
Learning the lingo. Yeah, okay. So when he comes back, he or she, well, then this is over?
That's done then, yeah.
Okay,
Sort of like a sub-leave,
Yeah.
but for an OT.
okay.
When is the calendar public then?
We will put it out tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay. Any other questions or comments? With none, Madam Treasurer, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Hauser?
Aye.
Ms. Karstafen?
Aye.
Mrs. Segwin?
Aye.
And Mr. Elick?
Aye, motion carries. Madam Superintendent, do you have personnel action items this evening?
I sure do. First of all, to approve the appointment of the certified administrative staff. As I told you, President Elick, we actually hired Gary in October, and we finally found a replacement. And we're very excited, and you'll see that next, for the appointment of a certified staff member. As you know, we're struggling finding teachers and special education teachers even more so. To approve the athletic supplemental contract as listed below. Spring is coming, as we can see with the track coaches. Also to approve the athletic supplemental contracts for the following certified staff for head girls soccer coach and assistant girls soccer coach. To approve the following OHSAA tournament game workers. To approve the resignation of the following classified staff. I would like to say Teresa Rojos Mercado has been with us for several years, but she is moving to be closer to her daughters in Florida. To approve the appointment of the following classified administrative staff. Just to explain this one a little bit, with the vacancies in the Treasurer's Department, we moved some people around to optimize their strengths and the working financials. So Courtney is going to move from one position in operations to another. And we're excited because she's done a wonderful job for us. To approve the appointment of the following classified staff as detailed below. And that concludes my personnel action items.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's personnel action items?
So moved.
I have a motion by Board Member Sequin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Gebhardt. Any questions or comments?
I have one question or comment. I like the order of this soccer coach. I like the Alyssa being the daughter.
Yes,
The head coach and.
it's very important, Mr. Gebhardt.
The
I am
order-
excited to watch Mr. Church take orders from Miss Church.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we got it in that order then. Okay. That's good. Any other questions or comments here? With none, Madam Treasurer, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Segwin?
Aye.
Mr. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Ms. Karstafen?
Aye.
Mr. Hauser?
Aye.
And Mr. Elick.
Aye, motion carries. Madam Superintendent, is there anyone here that you would like to announce?
I would.
And
First of
introduce
all,
us
Courtney Craig, who's moving to an administrative assistant job. She's been with us in operations, doing all the scheduling for maintenance and everything.
Great, great, congratulations.
And then Tina Maddock, who was in that position, is moving, she did accounts payable, right? And she is combining where Jen Kellaway moved to payroll. And we just kind of shifted everyone around to work to their strengths, so worked out real well.
Great.
And then we have two new coaches, not so new, Elyria, born and bred, Alyssa and Todd Church.
Great.
Alyssa's a
Welcome.
teacher. Alyssa's a teacher at Northwood, one of our new STEAM teachers.
Great.
And Todd has been a teacher at Westwood for a number of years. He was at Eastern Heights before that, and the high school. One thing you'll know is, actually, Alyssa played for her dad. Todd was a soccer coach in Strongsville and state champ,
Oh, wow,
and he's
great.
coached the national team, so I think we're going to look forward to quite the program in the next few years.
Wow, wonderful, great. Welcome, welcome.
No pressure.
All right. All right, any other introductions then?
No, I think that is it for today. I think Mr. Bruner could not make it, but he is
Okay.
very excited. And then I'll go right into report if you'd
Sure,
like.
absolutely.
Just a couple. First of all, on February 27th, I'll be attending the LaCapsie Awards. A lot of our local, I believe it's the 27th, I might have the date wrong, but I think that's what it was. Go every year, Mr. Brown and I, and Mr. Bazinski has been there a few times, but we go and honor our students. And it's a really neat ceremony. And also met on Friday with all the Southwest Conference superintendents, high school principals, and middle school representatives. And on March 14th and April 29th, we're going to be doing some leadership summits with our students. And we're really excited about that, just building a positive culture within our conference. And it's going to be good stuff. We're working with James Knight, who actually lives in Elyria. I believe he's the pastor at the Healing House. And he's been working with St. Edward's School for the last 5 to 8 years on inclusion. So really excited about the work, and I think the students and the staff are going to get a lot out of it.
Good.
Great,
That's all I have right now.
okay.
That's good.
Great, thank you, Madam Superintendent. Okay, Board of Education, we have one business item on here to approve the second reading and adoption of the new policy for graduation requirements. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion by Board Member Karstoffen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Sequin. Any comments or questions? With none, Madam Treasurer, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Karstafen?
Aye.
Mrs. Segwin?
Aye.
Mr. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Hauser?
Aye.
And Mr. Elick.
Aye, motion carries. There is no executive session this evening, and is there anything for the good of the cause from the board members today? No?
No.
With that, I will look for a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Madam Treasurer, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Hauser?
Aye.
Ms. Karstafen?
Aye.
Mrs. Segwin?
Aye.
And Mr. Elick.
Aye, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.